Good evening, everybody. I'm Ithaca Hawk, and welcome to the Alliance Open Opens. I'm here today with a crew of very experienced tournament people. We have Mr. Brett Thomas, we have Mystical Might, we have Rathnon Domitras in the background pushing all the important buttons, and of course Mr. Bay Art J, who is our cameraman for the day. And as well as that, we have a very special guest, CCP Aurora. She's helping us out getting this all sorted up on Thunderdome. And yeah, that's right. We are on Thunderdome finally. So you see on screen we have all the fancy stuff. We have the UI. We have all the proper ship rules. It's much better. There's no need to run around undocking and clearing arenas. It's finally good to go. And we had some technical difficulties, but we're ready to go now. So as soon as Wrath is happy, he's going to push a button, and a countdown will happen for the first match, which is Slice versus the Tuskers. And your commentators are going to be Mystical Might and Brett Thomas.
Hello, hello. Pleasure to be here, and I'm happy to be with Brett. I think Brett's probably going to be the one shoutcasting all of this, but haven't had the pleasure of actually casting with you before, Brett.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to this Open. A lot of the matches have been coming up, and a lot of the comps you've been seeing is very interesting. Do you want to introduce what Red Team have got for us?
Sure. The countdown's currently happening, so they'll be getting underway in a moment. But before that happens, I'll say that Red Team has a Golem, Navy Scorpion, Claymore Vulture, 2 Jackdaws, 2 Scalpels, a Bellicose, and a Hawk. And the Blue Team?
The Blue Team have gone with Triple Maelstrom, Nighthawk, Navy Drake, with Kirans, Imps, and Manticores in the low. A real battleship heavy comp, and looks like the Claymores are taking a lot of damage early on the Red Team. It's pushing in and looks like it's going to be screening for the Golems, which is why it looks like it's been focused, since it's the closest thing for those heavy artillery weapons from the Maelstroms.
Yeah, I was just going to point out that it looks like the 3 Maelstroms are all running tracking computers, sensor boosters, and, well, 1400mm artilleries. So I suppose the Claymore made sense as a primary target because it's probably going to be squishy with an ASB in terms of the actual buffer that it has, and it presents a reasonable size target.
Yes,
actually shoot.
Yes, the Slice Claymore's finally going down. It looks like someone's finally got Scram Web on it, so its speed's lowered, and everything's just started to track. It's in its, the skin of its teeth bit of hull, and it's finally gone down.
I like what the Imps are doing at the moment. They've sent the Imps in as interceptors. They are AT ships, so they will be bonused in different ways. These interceptors have an AB bonus, so they're extremely small signature-wise, which means that it's going to be easy for the Kirans to keep them up. And they sent the Imps into the backline to tackle down some of the battleships at the very beginning of the match, and now they're burning them back as they take damage so that they can take those reps.
Yes, it looks like the Vulture's going down, which is the last bit of links for the Red Team. It's just into low shield, and it's starting to break through structure, whereas the Nighthawk on the Blue Team is still not dead yet. It's just managing to stay alive. An important thing to note is both these teams are running 2 Logi-Frigs with the Kirans and the Scalpels, and the Scalpel of Gianna here has been scrammed, which shouldn't really do much since Scalpels are mostly 10 AB. But the thing to notice is that focusing one large target as the Nighthawk goes down is really the wrong thing you don't want to do when you're going against Scalpels, as while they have amazing rep power, they do not have a lot of mobility and range. So focusing one target and staying on it is really, really useful for these logistics physics.
Yeah, they are going in quite hard on Skylar Hawk at the moment. I saw that he dropped into low shields, but in the meantime, the blue team's putting pressure onto that Golem, which has dipped into structure multiple times at this point. And we can see that it's still sitting around low shields at the moment. So it seems like red team's having a bit of a hard time applying pressure to the blue team, although they are now taking down a Navy Drake to armor and a Kirin at the same time, probably using those Jackdaws when it comes to the Kirin. So it's not over yet, necessarily.
They've finally done what the correct thing to do is, instead of just focusing down one target and allowing those logistics frigates to just stay and apply more rep power than a logistics cruiser would, they focused shooting both the Drake and the Kirin. So the other Kirin had the choice of either saving its friend or saving the Navy Drake, which unfortunately both have finally went down, as the Golem for the red team has went down as well.
So they're going to try and trade that Navy Drake and Kirin for a Golem and a Scalpel, which seems to be something that they will be able to pull off here. For that, they'll take a second Kirin, so they will leave the blue team Logilus, which leaves them just 2 Imps and 3 Maelstroms. So one thing that I will say we need to keep an eye out for is rep bots, but it looks like blue team's using bouncers on their Maelstroms to apply more damage, which will mean that the Imps aren't going to receive any reps since these Kirins are now dead.
Yeah, but blue team are in such an advantageous position at the moment. They've gone through the golem, which was like 50% of the damage, and destroyed the 2 battle cruisers. They still have 3 maelstroms alive. They could lose the entirety of their bottom end and still be totally fine. 3 maelstroms against Navy Scorpion and support is a fight I would take any day.
Yeah, I'd say that we're going to see the Scalpel die to the 2 imps. That's where the imp pressure is being placed at the moment, and the Maelstroms are shooting the Navy Scorpion. I don't really see any way that a Navy Scorpion and a couple Jackdaws beats 3 Maelstroms necessarily without getting on top of them and somehow having an AB and trying to skirt damage. But I don't think that's going to be possible for the red team at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. As we see this Navy Scorpion start to drop, I believe it might be holding its ansail until the last moment to try and bait a little bit of extra damage. Maybe not. It just looks like it's going through structure already. It must have already used them.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, with the 2 imps and the 3 Maelstroms still alive against the 2 Jackdaws, a Cruiser and the Hawk, I think they'll have a hard time bringing it back now as red team. I expect it will just be a clear up for the moment. I think Dana Walker's imp may go down. He's been target painted by the Bellicose. He's being chased by the Hawk, and there are 2 Jackdaws on field. But I mean, it's not the end of the world if it does, since it's Thunderdome.
Yeah, exactly. These imps did so much help in this match. They are extremely fast and extremely survivable with that AB bonus that it gets from its Succubus. Whole type.
I mean, we saw one go down, the second one's going to go down as well. It is very much a case of the Maelstrom's probably going to have a little bit of a hard time trying to clear up the remaining ships on the red side, simply because of their signature and the fact that the Maelstroms have RTs, and without the rest of their team, they don't have any support to lock those targets down. So it may very well be a case of waiting for the timer to run out, or a ship sits still for a moment and dies. We can see the Bellicose is webbed at the moment, so they do have webs of some sort. Maelstroms.
These Maelstroms have grapples, and by the looks of it, I'm just trying to check whether the Maelstroms are autocannon or artillery, because unfortunately, I did not check earlier.
I checked one of them, and they had RTs. So unless one of them has RTs and the rest have autos, I think we're pretty safe to say they have artillery. It's the drones that are perhaps applying some of the damage to the webbed or grappled ships.
Unfortunately for the red team, you notice the 3 Maelstroms immediately do what I would think. They're immediately pointing in different directions and spreading out. So the smaller ships, to get underneath the guns of one of them, are perfectly in range of the other. As you see something just get absolutely deleted, the moment the artillery gets far enough, and with those double tracking computers can actually track something, it just gets deleted.
Yeah, so that was General Hungry that hit that Jackdaw there, who was webbed down by VLD. I'm glad to see that General was good at one game, because he's not great at Among Us from my experiences. So, I'm glad to see he's doing well in Eve.
Yeah, it looks like the Hawk's the only thing that's going to have a signature radius small enough to not get shot. The Jackdaw is just getting heated grapple, which won't do much at the range they are, seeing as they're about 5-10 kilometers from each other. But it's just going to give that little bit of extra speed slow down so that these RTs can finally track.
Yeah, I'd say that I see VLD burning around to each of the Jackdaws that was getting grappled there. It seems like he's just overheating his grapple, burning in so that the other 2 can hit. Not necessarily concerned about himself being able to hit these targets at this point in time. And now we just have the Hawk, who's hopefully going to approach and just die for us. Looks like he's going for Hungry, or General, rather. And he caved off.
The important thing is all of these Maelstroms are going to be AS-based. Unfortunately, there's not much the Hawk can do. I don't think the Hawk could bend through all the armor and all the structure of a Maelstrom before the ASB gets off reload.
Yeah, it's very much a case of either Telesery, I believe you pronounce it, runs down the time to preserve his free ship, or he burns in and dies.
Yeah, we're seeing good fights in local, both teams being definitely... I've completely forgot the word, I'm sorry. Both teams showing respect to their opponents, showing a good match here.
Yeah, always nice to see the good fights on local once these matches conclude. Well, that's a good point. He could go test the boundary.
One of the Maelstroms could definitely set the record for the longest ship kill.
Oh, he's going. So I guess we're going to see if the boundary actually works, provided he doesn't get volleyed by a Maelstrom on the way out, which he may very well do since he's burning directly away from one of them at the moment.
Oh, the moment you see it actually get into distant range, it starts taking damage from the artillery. Is the RT going to kill it first, or is the Hawk going to boundary?
It looks like it's going to boundary. It may have passed beyond the actual range of the Maelstroms and the bouncers at this point, so...
By the looks of it, it is curving. When it bends straight away, it's... Oh!
There we go. Okay, boundary works at least,
Yes!
so that's confirmation enough for us. But yeah, that was a solid win by the blue team using RT Maelstroms. Wonder if we're going to see that again today, or if they're going to bring something new in the later matches.
Well,
Sorry,
well done to both teams, and I think it's about time we pass it back to Ithaca Hawk.
Yeah, so a win there for the Tuskers as they show that the Alliance Open meta is going to be Maelstroms plus Imps. I expect all teams will be copying that post-haste. As you can see here, we've got a nice desk set up. CCP Aurora joining myself and BRJ, along with CCP Leggy Bro. So, you know, thanks for coming, CCP Aurora. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Not bad, not bad. Bay is pushing all the buttons. Bay spent a couple of hours setting this up earlier on today. Bay, how are you?
I'm good, thank you very much.
And I noticed you've put Jintan's jacket on me.
Someone did point out we did. It was, you know, there is at least 3 or 4 memes in the Alliance Tournament memes and picture. Your t-shirt didn't look too good on the model, so...
I think my character just wears like a plain t-shirt.
Make you shinier until you fix that, so...
So, Misty, what did you make of that match then?
I think it's kind of reminiscent of the other matches that we've seen over the previous weekends. The RT Maelstrom, it's not the first time we've seen it brought to the CC matches. And I guess I'm not surprised that it won this match, given the fact that most of the damage was weighted into the kind of top few ships on the red team side. So very much investing in their support wing with the Jackdaws and the Bellic cluster.
Yeah, so the Imps is something we should probably talk about. So in the Alliance Open, it will be taking place on the Thunderdome server, and what we've done is we've implemented this rule we're calling the wildcard rule, and that allows teams to declare an Alliance Tournament cruiser or an Alliance two Alliance Tournament frigates as their wildcards. And they get one wildcard they can pull it at any time, and that allows them to bring those ships into the match with them. If they lose them, then obviously that's a bit of a waste. They don't get to use them again unless they make the finals. I think it's going to be very interesting. We're going to see many teams who have never had access to these sort of ships before use them again. Brett, what do you think about this wildcard rule?
I definitely think it brings a lot of interesting comps on the table. A personal favourite of mine, it allows you to bring back the old Tinkeritana, which is a absolute favourite of mine that I am desperate to see in at least one match.
Yeah, I mean, in the Tana you're bringing on TQ for Alliance Room, you're risking, you know, I don't know how much they're worth now, probably upwards of 400-500 billion. Misty, you probably know.
I'd say depending on who you talk to, it's probably going to be like 300-ish plus.
Yeah, so it's an expensive ship. So if you're maybe not so confident and you're a smaller alliance, or you just don't have the money, or you don't have someone willing to actually sell you one, because they are quite rare and a lot of people do hoard them, then the chances of ever being able to bring a Tinkeritana setup is just zero. But in the Alliance Open, you know, you can bring one. You can just get yourself a free Atana, bring it, and, you know, maybe win with it. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, you know, maybe less experienced teams. Let's just say, for example, a less experienced team comes up against a more experienced team, like a team that's maybe won the tournament before, and they're like, well, we want to win here, so they're going to bring their wild card, whereas the experienced team might be like, well, we're not going to bring ours because we don't want to waste it now, we want to keep it until we get to a later stage of the tournament. So I think we're going to see a really interesting dynamic with teams bringing them at different times. Misty, do you think there's going to be any embarrassing upsets with this wild card rule?
Well, it's kind of hard to predict how each match is going to go, given the fact that depending on who you are, if you've got a recognizable name and people are afraid of you for whatever reason, you're going to see a wild card basically every match probably. So That would be like Tuskers, Volta, Warlords, Hydra. I expect to just get wildcarded by every team because it's very much a case of self-preservation, right? Like you wildcard, or you. I mean, you could save the wildcard and potentially just win by bringing something out of the box. To be fair, which is, I think there may be some room for upsets, but I don't think it will be because of the wildcard necessarily in most cases.
An important thing to remember is the wildcard can only be brought once for the tournament. So for a lot of the better teams, they'll be saving it for a lot of the more important matches. But the less experienced teams, this will be okay, we're going against a team we're not really sure about. Let's bring the wildcard so we can try to get an advantage, which they will have.
Exactly. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So it seems that if you've watched in the last match, you'll notice there wasn't any MJD beacons in the arena. We're not going to be doing MJD beacons tonight because they're not set up currently on Thunderdome for us. That is something we'll look into getting next time. They will be available on the actual tournament, so don't worry about that. The next match set up now. It's a lot easier using the tournament tool. Wrath is clicking frantically in the background for us today to do that. Our next match is going to be Warlords of the Deep versus No Vacancies. Now, Warlords, of course, are a very experienced team made up of so many pilots that have much experience in the Alliance tournament as pilots of teams like PL, Hydra, Warlord, Camel Empire, all the sort of really big top teams, Volta as well, some ex-Volta pilots in there. No Vacancies, a little bit less experienced. I believe they have flown before the Wormhole Alliance. So this would be an exact example, I think you were saying, Misty, of when we would expect, if this was a real match, the No Vacancies would bring a wildcard ship.
Yeah, so, I mean, I obviously have mixed feelings about this wildcard rule from the view of somebody that's probably going to get cheesed every single match, right? But it does give these newer teams an advantage that allows them to kind of compete against teams that maybe have some more experience. But my concern would be that some of the newer teams perhaps practice too much with the wildcards in anticipation in these matches, and then don't practice enough with the non-wildcard setups, right? Because they can only bring the wildcard once, as we've mentioned a couple of times. And there will be times where they don't want to bring the wildcard necessarily. So I guess it's a double-edged sword on that front. But yeah, I mean, this would probably be one of those matches where we see a wildcard come out. I'd be interested to see which type of wildcard they use. And I think anyone has to confirm which one they're going to be using for the tournament. Now, they confirm it towards the end of the month, right? So
Yeah, we're getting close to the point where you have to actually confirm the wild card. Now, in your opinion, is there like a tier list? I'm asking you because you're probably the most experienced in terms of bringing comps with wild cards and expensive ships. Is there like a tier list that you would say that teams should be looking at?
Whichever one doesn't get jammed, to be honest. But I think, I mean, it's kind of hard. It depends what you want the wild card to do, and it depends on what the points are in the tournament itself. So it's important to keep in mind, I guess, that you can only bring one cruiser, but you can bring 2 frigates, is, I guess, one thing to point out. But beyond that, I don't think there's really a tier list for the ships themselves. I suppose the Logi would always be great, depending on the setup you're running them in.
A very diplomatic answer for someone who's on one of the teams and doesn't want to give away strats.
Well, it's not so much that. It depends on how you play, right? Like, each team is going to have a way that they approach the tournament. So I can't say, like, sure, like, we approach it one way, but then another team may have a completely different concept of how they want to fly, what they want to be running, and how they want to try and beat the other teams. So sometimes the, historically good AT ships don't fit into that kind of picture necessarily. Hey, someone might bring a Chameleon, for example. Pretty strong.
Yeah. We saw a Chameleon do really well in the last Alliance tournament in the Vidra and Hydra setups that basically ended up winning the whole tournament, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, it's about bringing the correct ship at the correct time that can kind of swing how not only the match goes, but the tournament after that as well.
I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of Rabisus. I think that's going to be a super popular one, just because it can get you around bans against logistic cruisers. Armor tends to be historically a little bit stronger than shield in tournament settings. So versus the Atana, I would say more people would be likely to pick the Rabisu. I mean, Brett, do you agree with that?
Definitely. I believe the Rubisu is really, really powerful in defensively. So compared to a lot of the other logistic ships like the Guardian or the Emiris, the Rubisu is really powerful at staying alive and staying defensive.
Yeah, and
I agree with
obviously
that.
armor is really good for control, which is one of the things that shield comps tend to lack. I think we have seen a number of shield comps maybe start to make a little bit of a comeback this year due to the rule changes that Bay has made in terms of points and so on. Compared to the last AT, and compared to what we've seen so far in the Open Opens, definitely more teams bringing shield than previously. Misty, do you have anything to say on that one?
I mean, if you want proof, I guess you can just look at the 4 setups that have been brought so far. I mean, it's not shown on stream yet, but they'll see it eventually. We haven't seen armor today, so that's a spoiler for the upcoming match, which I won't go any further into until it's on screen. But yeah, I think shield's a viable choice now, given some of the rule changes and some of the ship hull limits as well. So you don't necessarily want to run like 8 armor battle cruisers, for example, or something like that.
Well, you can't actually. So
Yeah, exactly.
that's a good segue for me to quickly explain one of the rules. You can only bring 3 of any ship's size. So that is frigate, destroyer, cruiser, battle cruiser, and battleship. Maximum 3. Logistic ships are exempt, so you could bring 3 Maulers and a Guardian if you wanted. Don't know why you would, but you could. You could not bring 2 Maulers and 2 Omens, because that would be 4 cruisers and therefore illegal. So that is a bit of a different rule compared to what we've had before. It does eliminate things like the Octodad and makes things super interesting in my
But
opinion.
that
And,
doesn't apply to logistics ships.
yes, I did say.
Oh, okay, sorry, I
Pay
didn't hear that
attention,
part. I'm reading a chat. All right.
I expect your full attention.
Yeah. I was gonna say that before we saw the. Well, actually, when are we gonna go over to the arena? I'll mention it then. It's fine. No man, I was gonna mention some of the. You mentioned the not the flagship, but the wildcard rule, and which team should be bringing the wildcard in their setup. I don't know if you can see the grid at the moment from where you are.
I can, yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
Just to
Yeah.
mention something here while we get ready for the next match. So, for people who are unaware, this tool we're using for the visuals is the old Alliance Tournament tool, and it's kind of like a little bit janky. There's a lot of things you need to learn to get it to work properly, and the character I'm using for the Spectator client, which is the one that has all the ships on grid, can only lock 12 targets, so that's why you can only see 12 of them in space. I'm trying to move around so you can see the other ones, but we will get that fixed either soon or for next time. So just people keep pointing out, it's like, yeah, it's not perfect, but we're working on it.
We'll
Yeah.
get it started in between next match.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Thunderdome server as a server wasn't even functioning about 48 hours ago, but CCP Aurora has been an absolute hero this week, and I mean, she created, 600 odd accounts basically manually by resetting all the passwords and everything for us to do this, and she manually patched the server herself, so what normally takes a whole team of people to do, she did herself. So a round of applause for CCP Aurora for doing that. I mean, we can chuck to the arena right now, Bay, if you want to throw everyone in the arena,
Yeah.
and Misty and Brett can take you through what's going on, and then Wrath can hit the button.
Hit the button.
Hey.
Also, although it says Slice and Tuskers on your screen, it is in fact Warlords of the Deep in
Scuffed.
red,
Scuffed production.
and no vacancies in,
I'll fix
in
that
blue.
live. You guys, you go and start.
Cool. So welcome back to the arena again. I'm joined by Brett once more. Brett, do you want to run us through the red team?
Yes, the red team has brought triple Sleipnir, Scimitar, Vagabond, triple Jackdaw, double Cambion.
The blue team has brought 3 Navy Drakes, 3 Cerberuses, 1 Bifrost, 1 Scalpel, a Hyena, and a Carries. So I'm just going to highlight, as the match 30 seconds until it starts, we can see 1 logistics frigate on the blue team. So they haven't brought the pair, which they're allowed. Do you know why that is?
I believe this is mostly because this comp is built with ancillary boosters, with the triple Navy Drake and the triple Cerberus all being single ancil. The Scalpel is only there to keep them alive long enough for the huge amount of damage that all of these ships can bring can be applied.
I'd be interested to see whether the Scalpel burns away or burns in, because since it's just a single cruiser, I'm wondering if it's going to burn in as tackle. No, it's burned away. Okay, so it is actually going to be acting as a logistics frigate this time. And we can see that the Vagabond's ramming straight up the middle, flown by Aurus Porcelius, trying to get tackle, I think, on some of the blue team. And we see the hyena go down immediately.
Yeah, this, these... Apologies, the red team is now burning in the Sleipnirs. They are pushing forward and trying to get as much damage as possible and trying to lock something down. The red team's smaller end, the Cambions and the Jackdaws, have bent backwards and away to try and not get tackled and stay alive long enough for them to apply all this long-range DPS on the Cerberus, on the Hyena, on the Scalpel, all of that small stuff, get the damage on it.
So I'm just going to say that the Scalpel and the Cerberus went down within seconds of each other, it seems, on my screen at least. So the Scalpel wasn't able to keep itself alive at the very back, even though it burned away from these Sleipnirs and from these Jackdaws at the very beginning. We can see that both Cerberuses now have gone down. That leaves one left. So I guess they just weren't effectively able to pull range at the very beginning.
Well, unfortunately, it's a Jackdaw, and a Jackdaw with its tracking bonus can apply ridiculously in a comp like this. So with triple, Jackdaw can immediately apply long-range light missiles to that Scalpel regardless of where it is on the arena. And it looks like the Sleipnirs were tackling down the Serb and immediately applying damage with autocannons. So it looks like they're splitting damage effectively, and the small stuff is applying damage to the small stuff. The small stuff of red team is applying damage to the smaller end of the blue, whereas the Sleipnirs are just chasing things down and chunking them down, as you're seeing with this Drake Navy issue of Toon Zone. It's just getting destroyed because the Sleipnirs have finally gone on top of it.
But I want to point out that only one Sleipnir was actually on that Drake Navy there. It seems like they've split their Sleipnirs into two separate groups. One flies with the double Cambion and the Vagabond, and the other two ram off after, I suppose, the Jackdaws and the other Cambion. I think both Cambions were actually on Virtuoso there, so ignore that last part. But it seems like they were able to take down two separate Navy Drakes at effectively the same time without really being pressured too much.
A really interesting pick here is the Vagabond. The shield hack that they've brought with its ridiculous speed that a Vagabond brings and its defensive ability it brings with its ADC, the Vagabond can just ram something down and hold it. When the Sleipnir gets on it, it can let go and immediately fly to the next thing, and it's defensive enough as a heavy tackle ship that it cannot be shot. As we've seen, it's being shot and has just taken no damage.
Yeah, it's a reasonably small signature for a cruiser that's shield fit, but like you said, fitting the ancillary shield booster means that it's not going to really suffer too much from the signature penalties that you'll get from extenders. And it seems to have done the job in terms of burning down some of these ships on the blue team, effectively allowing red team to get on top and clean sheet.
Yeah, an excellent match there with good fights in local. Well done to the teams that played and well done to the winners. While we pass it back.
Yeah, good job there, as well as the Deep, bringing dual Cambions there against Novak. So far we've seen both Tuskers and Warlords, two of what I would say is probably the top teams, bringing the wildcard ships, whereas the newer teams, I guess, the less experienced teams are not bringing them. I wonder if there's any reason for that, or if the quote top tier teams are just fancy a bit of a dunking just now because they finally got access to these ships on Thunderdome. But yep, that was a good match. We saw Novak bringing a single logistics frigate, which is certainly an interesting choice. Misty, do you rate that choice as a comp, single logistics frigate?
I rate it not well, but it is rated. I don't know if it's the best choice to make to bring a single frigate on the logistics end, especially if you're actually going to be using it as a logistics frigate. I was trying to see whether it was going to ram in and try and act as fast tackle, since it's going to have that incredibly small signature. It's going to be reasonably tanky for the ship that it is. It's not going to have any tackle bonuses, but it has plenty of mid slots as well to be able to keep it up if it has shield bots, for example. So it could pin down a Sleipnir. Probably died at some point anyway, since they were going for what was essentially a Lodulus comp, but it would have slowed down the red team's ability to burn in. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to bring one, just don't actually try and rep with it because it's not going to work.
An important thing to note is logistic frigates were brought in previous Alliance tournaments as a one-off. It was brought in the Octodad like battlecruiser type of comp, where the logistics frigate was only there to mitigate damage, but also because the amount of damage that it could mitigate with its high speed, that the time taken to shoot the logistics frigate is time that your huge amount of DPS could apply. That is not a problem necessarily in this tournament anymore, since ships are limited to 3 of each hull size, but it is something to consider that bringing a single logistics frigate could be a strategy if your comp has a ridiculous amount of DPS.
Yeah, sorry, I just got distracted there because we spawned another ship in the arena. We managed to bump the arena tournament bubble itself, and that has a really odd visual effect of the entire arena, all the dotted lights just kind of wobbling around the screen. It's very interesting when that happens, and it really distracted me for a moment there.
It scared me the first few times I saw it. I was like, oh no, it's breaking. What's happening?
It looks like the entire system is just going mental.
Yeah,
we're good.
it's kind of crazy. I've been a little quiet here because I'm in the background, just kind of teleporting people around and fixing skills and all that sort of stuff in the meantime.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, we appreciate all the work you're doing. CSP Aurora are literally doing everything for this tournament to make it even happen. So once again, thank you for that. We've got another match coming up. In fact, we have a couple of matches coming up. It's the whole point of what we're doing today. The next match is going to be Slice versus No Vacancies. So there'll be a small delay while No Vacancies reship because they are going back-to-back matches, which is understandable. Misty, you've flown in a lot of tournament matches. How is it having to get into another match almost immediately after you've done the first match?
I'd say that the hardest part of the actual tournament, historically, when you're playing not necessarily back-to-back matches, but playing multiple matches on the same weekend, or the same day rather, is deciding what you're actually going to bring. Considering you've just shown something, you can't necessarily just bring the same thing again to the next match, which is half an hour or an hour away. So that's usually where the complication comes in, and then you get ready, you look through your setups, you make sure everything's online, you try to make sure that all of your charges are there. So there's a lot that you have to take into account on TQ. On Thunderdome, you can spawn all of these items by using some of the admin commands that people get access to when they are on the server, so like the give item command. So it's not too much of an issue this time because you can just literally spawn all the items you need, drag them into your ship, and you're good to go. But the major burden sits with the people making the decisions at the very top on what they actually want to fly and thinking about what thought process they're going to be using for that match.
Yeah, the old days when you didn't have multi-fitting as well on TQ, you would have teams literally having to make sure they had almost all their stuff already pre-fit in advance, and then that would be them. It was just way more involved. I mean, what was the first Alliance tournament you competed in, Misty?
That's a good question. I have no idea, to be honest. I know it's many years ago, but I think it would have been after VOC. I don't think I took part with VOC. Maybe once. I don't think I did though. So I have no idea.
I think the first one I flew in was Alliance Tournament 12, maybe. And I happened to be in Australia for work at the time, so I flew from a hotel lobby because the Wi-Fi in the room was terrible on a Mac laptop, and my mouse wasn't working, so I had to use the trackpad. And it was about 1 a.m. because of time zone differences, and there was a wedding reception on in like the same place, so it was a bit chaotic.
Yeah, I mean, there's always some interesting stories about 80 matches and what you're actually doing at the same time. So you with your wedding story. I had internet issues during one of the matches that I flew where I had 50% packet loss the entire time, so I couldn't hear anything properly and I couldn't communicate. And I was flying a Malice at the time as well, which wasn't great. So it was very much a pray that I don't actually fully disconnect while in the match type thing.
The disconnects always seem to come faster when you're in the middle of a match. We had one AT match when I was captain where we had multiple ships all disconnect right at the start, one of which was our Vindicator, so we were left with almost no DPS, and we actually managed to come back. They logged back in. The Vindicator had been on approach, so they didn't go out of the arena. And then we just, once that DPS came on, the match just totally flipped. It was one of the coolest moments. It looked like we clawed from behind, but really, I guess we just had like a really big advantage from the start that we didn't get to use until ships came back.
And there's so many cool stories of AT. If you've got any cool ones, pop them in Twitch chat. CCP Convict has just popped one in saying when he flew in the Neo, CCP bartender was crashing at his place while he was moving to a new place before either of them worked at CCP. He was trying to sleep in an air mattress on the floor in his computer room while I was whispering into the mic at 2 AM trying to keep him awake. Wow. I mean, there's been plenty of interesting things that's happened over the years in the Alliance tournament, and to be honest, I am super glad that we have the return of, Alliance versus Alliance combat in a tournament format, because the 5v5s that Jero ran is incredible. It's totally pick up and play. Anyone can join a team at any time. You just turn up, you can play. We've had like the EVE-NT major minor leagues where teams could form, so you could have multiple teams from the same alliances, or people across all the different like alliances coming together to form a team. But there's something a little bit different about having actual alliance versus alliance. Bay, I know that was a big motivation for you for organising this.
Yeah, I think you've kind of got an automatic fan base there when you're in an alliance that's associated with a group on TQ, and I think that it just kind of gives it a bit more atmosphere. I think tournament stuff. Obviously, a lot of that high level kind of elite PvP teams are generally quite small groups on TQ, but they have kind of networks of friends and stuff and contacts and former alliance mates and stuff that kind of tend to be much more interested in a fight between, say, Warlords and Goons than two random names you've never heard of but have the same people in. So I think, I feel that putting the alliance back in tournaments is what we were trying to do.
Yeah, and also one of the other things that's made it a little bit difficult to organise this, and something we run into so far, is the fact that there's no ship that exists on TQ that players can have access to that can lock 20 people. So that made producing this on Singularity very difficult. They had all sorts of camera hacks going on to try and get it to work. But now we've got Thunderdome. That is getting resolved in the next couple of days, hopefully, and we've got a full tournament, Bay. That's what we've got, a full tournament. Are you excited? Because I'm excited.
Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to the actual tournament a lot now. It should be good. I feel like, just from having watched Opens, and I know it's like Opens meta is very different from the actual tournament meta, but I'm liking what I'm seeing so far in terms of a good variation of different types of comps that are coming out. Like, it's not, armor's not too dominant, as it was previously. There's definitely some shield viability. And different types of shield comps as well, which is cool. So Minmatar Rush seems to be back on the cards as well. I don't know if that's just people are bringing that because it's a standard kind of comp. They don't have to give away anything too secret, but it seems pretty strong anyway. So that's pretty cool. I'm happy with that because my fandom of tournaments started when Minmatar Rush was popular back in the Alliance tournament. I want to say 7 or 8. So yeah, looks like we're nearly ready for the next match.
Yeah, the teams have been moved into local by Rathlon Domitras in the background, who has the power today. More shield, Misty, more shield. Shield versus shield again.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just checking to see what the points were on that blue team comp. So they are actually over points. I'm not sure how we want to handle that one.
CCP Aurora has very kindly offered to delete them completely from the arena, which is going to be hilarious.
I missed that.
So it probably will put break the tool.
That'll work. Okay, yeah, sorry. So yeah, 2 more shield
Do it
comps.
once the timer hits 0.
Okay, perfect.
So one of those 2 additional, I think basically they probably had somebody in a Caracal and Spare and Fleet, and they got moved as well, I think is what happened by the looks of it.
I think they just messed up points, and they brought too many points, and so they're just trashing one of their ships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know which one's gonna die, just so we're not surprised at the very beginning?
Marie Morton has
Okay.
a sense of impending doom.
Perfect.
So let's chuck the camera into the arena now, and we do see more wild cards being brought this time. This time it's a dual Whiptail being brought by, I believe, Slice. But he has updated the overview this time. Fantastic, so you can see it as well. And I'll let our commentators, Mystical Might and Brett Thomas take you through it.
Hey, welcome back to the arena once again. We see more shield on grid. I'll run through red team and then I'll throw it back over to you, Brett, if that's all right.
Yes.
So red team has brought, again, Golem, Navy Scorpion, Claymore, Vulture, Navy Osprey, Better Close, 2 Scalpels and 2 Whiptails. And blue team?
Blue team has brought triple Rattlesnake with a Rapier as support for those long-range rebs. It has brought a Bifrost for Link, dual Scalpels, a Hawk, and 2 Caracals. And as we know, one of those Caracals is going to cease existing the moment the timer reaches 0.
Yeah, so we'll be seeing Marie, unfortunately for him or her, exploding at the very beginning. But the rest of the setup, it's essentially a 9-man setup going up against a 10-man setup, which has a couple wildcard ships.
An important thing to notice is the Navy Osprey of Crystal Foxglove is at 0 in this comp, whereas the rest of red team has come at range. I'm unsure if that was a miswap or if something else, but I do not think this Navy Osprey is going to last very long.
I'm 90% sure that is a miswarp, but Marie also warped at 0, so there is no one in range to tackle apart from perhaps Asig in the Rattlesnake. And we see the Navy Osprey actually getting webbed or grappled as he tries to burn away. So it is in fact tackled. I think there was a Hawk there that came in as well, actually, to get tackled on that ship. So we'll see how long the Navy Osprey survives against the 3 Rattlesnakes. And I guess red team's going to have to burn in a little bit, try and get damage on.
Yeah, the Navy Osprey is receiving reps at the moment, but it is scram, grappled, and pointed. We do see that Caracal of Marymorton finally go down due to CCP Aurora, thank you. And the second Caracal is being shot at the moment. It is being repped up by the dual Scalpels, but it doesn't look like it has enough reps there to stay alive from these long-range missiles that the Golem and the Navy Scorpions can provide.
Yeah, so it's still being kept up at the moment. They may trade the Caracal for the Navy Osprey. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but we can see that the Hawk is being pressured at the very same time. So they have to choose between the Caracal or the Hawk at this point, and I think the Hawk is probably better in terms of being able to lock down some of the targets that their Rattlesnakes want to be getting on top of. And they have a lot of damage with those Rattlesnakes, so losing the Caracal I don't think matters too much given the comp that they're going up against. They just need to use the EHP that they have, those hit points in those Rattlesnakes, and with those Scalpel backup to burst through the Golem, Navy Scorpion, Claymore, and Vulture as fast as they can.
Yeah, the one thing you will notice is all of the Rattlesnakes have bent down onto this Golem and tried to tackle it down. The big thing about that is the Rattlesnakes have a spares high, and those highs, by the looks of it, are heavy newts, which are being applied to this Golem, hopefully to turn off its hardeners and to stop it from boosting itself back up. It's dropping into armor now, so it looks like it's effective. You can see just the tiny amount of health that it's getting from the Scalpels, and then the large boosts that's being applied to itself from its Ansil. It has gone through about 3 or 4 charges so far, but it doesn't look like it's cycling fast enough to stay alive.
I think they're having issues applying their damage properly to the blue team. So they have 2 Whiptails, right? And the Whiptails, if anyone doesn't know, is an Interceptor Garista ship. It's basically a worm on steroids. So it gets 2 really strong light drones. It seems like they put those Whiptails onto the Scalpels at the very beginning. I saw some tackle notifications. And then I think they also switched some of their damage to the Rapier a little bit later on to try and burst through it, which will free up their ability to move around. And nothing seems to be working that well at the moment. I think they're switching back to Slave Matt in the Scalpel, so we'll see whether he actually goes down. But it doesn't seem like they're able to use the Scalpel, the Whiptails to full efficiency here, given the fact that the Scalpels probably are 10 men.
Yeah, definitely. The Scalpel with 10 men, it doesn't matter that it's scrammed because it's just going to keep its speed up. It looks like light drones are finally flying forward against the Whiptail, which has let the Scalpel kind of free itself ever so slightly. Unfortunately, they're not attack drones. The shield maintenance bot of the blue team are on the red Whiptail.
That's just a classic mistake, but you press F on whatever ship you see. You don't think about the drones you have. Who has rep drones usually? So I can forgive them for that one. But in the meantime, the Vulture's gone down on the red team. We can see that the Scalpel's taking a bit of pressure now from trying to locate him on grid. I have to keep tweaking my setup as we go.
Yeah, and a thing to notice is Rattlesnakes have finally killed that Vulture. They're both on the opposite side of the grid to the Navy Scorpion and the Claymore. So hopefully the Navy Scorpion and Claymore can play this right with their support wing that they still have. They can hopefully keep the triple Rattlesnakes off them. But unfortunately, they've burned in to try and apply damage to this Bifrost and this Rapier, which allows the Rattlesnakes to just get immediately on top of them and start applying all their damage.
Yeah, so I wanted to point out that the Scalpel of Jean is tackled by the Hawk, so he doesn't seem to be moving all that fast, as we can see with his speed count on the left. And the Rattlesnake of Pinky was also grappling him at one point, but he's let that grapple go, I think, to switch to the Navy Scorpion or the Claymore, which is right next to all of those Rattlesnakes at this point. So very much brawling it out at what is essentially 0 of the beacon, or about 10 off.
An important thing to notice is that Scalpel is only traveling between 200 and 300, which I know from experience is double to triple Rapier webs. So it looks like the Rapier is just trying to web that Scalpel down and stop it from moving. And with triple webs, it is really, really tough on these small ships to try and stay alive. As you can see, the Scalpel is starting to drop. It is bouncing back up whenever the other Scalpel's reps land, but the moment between shots, it's just chunking.
It is very much a case of, from the looks of it, the blue team just not giving a shit that there are Whiptails on grid. So, the light drones that the Whiptails have are perhaps not applying enough pressure to the blue team to warrant killing them. Instead, they are focusing on the Navy Scorpion and the Scalpel at the same time. So we'll see the Navy Scorpion go down and then the Scalpel shortly after, it seems, from what's happening on grid at the moment.
Yeah, and that Scalpel finally goes down as well as the Navy Scorpions. A good splitting of damage there allows both ships to go down at once, and it looks at the moment the blue team have this in the bag. All the Rattlesnakes are alive, both the Scalpels are alive, and all their support is fine. The only thing they've lost, which is a Caracal, and the thing the Caracal does really well is apply lots of damage before it dies, which it did very effectively at the start of the match.
I was going to say that there's probably not too much else to really call out in terms of how people are flying, but the Better Close, interestingly enough, decided to burn in to 0 on the Rattlesnakes. Not sure if he was trying to get tackle on something, but probably not the place he wants to be. We can see that he got snagged as he went past, and he essentially just dies. As a T1 cruiser against the Rattlesnakes, there's really not enough reps coming out of that single Scalpel that can keep him alive. And the same Scalpel is being pressured again, I believe, by the Hawk, if I can find him on grid. Which I can, yeah, he's below us. And he's just gone down to the Hawk. But yeah, very much a cleanup now.
An interesting thing to note is I believe I'm seeing pairs of warriors fly around, which I'm unsure where they are from.
Would this be pairs of warriors from the red team?
Yes.
The Whiptails are essentially worms, right? So they'll get 2 light drones each that they can put out, but they'll be bonused for like 300%. If I'm remembering correctly, 375% to damage and hit points. So really strong drones. They apply really well as well because they are light. And single gun entities like drones typically have a tendency of wrecking shotting every now and then, which is a pain in the ass for normal pilots. But it means that these single drones can sometimes do like 1k volleys in their own right. But it didn't seem to be enough pressure put on the blue team to warrant killing them at the very beginning, even though, given the fact that they were burning in at 0, it would have been easier to tackle them at different points in this match. But that concludes the match. Blue team wins, and they've been cleared out of the arena. Good fights in local as well. And we'll throw it back over to Ithaca.
Yeah, thank you. So that was no vacancies there, taking a solid victory over Slice, who brought the wildcard. So officially, the first wildcard comp to be defeated in the Alliance Open, even if it is only the Alliance Open Opens, it is close enough. So I'm giving credit to Novak for that one right there. Good job, guys. So Missy, you talked a little bit about Whiptails. Do you think that's something that we'll see a lot of teams picking, dual Whiptails? I mean, talk to me a little bit about that, and also I'd like to hear yours and Brett's thoughts on picking cruisers over twin frigates.
Okay, so you mean in terms of wildcard, right? In terms of the cruiser.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Okay, yeah. I would say that the Whiptail is an interesting ship. I don't know if it works as well as they would hope in the comp that they brought it. And this kind of links back to what I was saying earlier about there are certain AT ships that are perhaps strong, but it depends on the mindset that you have when you approach the tournament, the types of comps that you want to be running, and how you want to execute those comps. So in this particular setup, where the red team is essentially a brawling team with a couple kiting boats like the Navy Osprey and the Bellicose, I don't know if it makes sense to have whiptails, which might warp drive fit, which want to kite around the very edge of the arena. It makes it easier to get on top of the logistics frigates. As we saw, they got tackled plenty of times. But logistics frigates don't give a shit if you have a scram when they are 10 men fit. So perhaps it's just a fitting issue. They don't fit webs on the ships instead of scrams because they want to utilize the scram bonus, which is a bit of a trap in a tournament setup. Or perhaps it's just that the light drones coming out from the whiptails aren't enough to really pressure logistics frigates frequently enough for the logistics frigate buddy to have to pull reps off of the target that they're both repping. So it's a bit interesting to see the whiptail in the setup, but I don't think this is the best setup for it. And before I throw it over to Brett, I think that it's sometimes a hard choice between bringing a single cruiser and bringing 2 frigates. But what the 2 frigates allow is increased pressure on grid in terms of the damage that they're putting out or better ability to tackle, whereas the cruisers, typically if we're speaking about logistics cruisers, better reps, survivability, or damage cruisers like the Chameleon, which have other things as well, like E-War bonuses that they also get. So there's a number of different factors that go into whether 2 frigates is better than 1 cruiser, and again that feeds back into how you want to play your matches. But I don't know if Brett has a different opinion, or if he has an opinion on which one's best.
No, I believe you've filled everything out. The most important to think of from a comp creating point of view is a lot of your you build a lot of your comps around the middle to top end. So usually on the bottom end you're looking for these small 3.4 point cost ships that fit in, and what the AAT ships allow you to do with this bottom end is to bring these small tackle ships that also apply a lot of damage, which some of the other stuff in certain comps wouldn't bring. So it is effectively killing 2 birds with 1 stone and maximizing your damage for a comp.
That's a good point, which I didn't mention, and I guess just to reinforce that, the AT ships don't have different point values from the actual class that they're in, so 2 whiptails cost the same as 2 crows, but 2 whiptails does a shit ton more than 2 crows could ever do. So it's about making the most, I guess, of the point values that you have, and also trying to make sure that the lower end of your core can actually do something.
Yeah, exactly. The only real thing I have to say about bringing the AT cruisers is that the reason you bring an AT cruiser over a normal cruiser is an AT cruiser can dodge bans.
Yeah, I think that that's a fair point. I don't know how many. I mean, that's typically for things like logistics cruisers, right?
Yeah.
The other ones you perhaps don't need to dodge bans necessarily. It's just about augmenting the setup that you already have, slotting an AT ship into it to make it stronger against certain teams. Not necessarily about changing how it's going to be played.
Yes, exactly.
Excellent. Thank you for that analysis, guys. Sorry if you hear noise. There's a cat on the table. So next match, I'm actually looking really forward to. It is Warlords of the Deep versus the Tuskers. So there's 2 teams that I guess everyone's kind of expecting to do quite well. I think both of them would consider the other team good enough to bring wildcard comps in the actual tournament if they came up, especially in an elimination setting. Misty, do you think we'll see wildcard comps here, or do you think that they're going to try and keep their cards close to their chest here?
I think that Tuskers and Warlords are going to ram the same setups that they've already brought into each other for the sake of ramming comps that they've already brought into each other. I think I don't know if we'll see any changes in terms of the setups that they actually bring. We could just see Cambions going up against Imps in the next match as different tackle wings, or they may just decide to bring no wildcards at all or change the setups completely. I have no idea how they'll decide to run the next matches.
Excellent. I mean, I think we don't see them in local yet, so we're still waiting for the teams to get ready. they have, I believe, less excuse than normal. Yeah, because none of those teams have played, so no vacancies managed to get ready quicker than Tuskers and Warlords, despite running twice, which is impressive for them. And then they won against that wildcard comp, so definitely well done to them.
Also want to point out that they won with 9 ships, by the way. Remember, the character at the very beginning got headshot by Aurora, so they were in a 9-man setup versus the full 10, and that full 10 had 2 whiptails, so well done to them, I guess.
Definitely well done to them. CCP Aurora, are you still busy doing things, or are you able to talk a bit now?
I can talk. I've run out of things to keep me busy, so...
Excellent. Well, I was just going to ask you if you've got any funny stories you can tell us about how you got Thunderdome up and running, and how you got this set up over the last sort of 2 weeks for us.
So when we launch Thunderdome, it has to be manually patched, and as we opened up Thunderdome, of course, we started getting some mild annoyances and complaints from players because the patch was not up to date. And so things like the Edencom ships, which have reduced points for this tournament, were not properly balanced because there had been a recent patch that had tweaked them. And so, of course, I'm like, all right, so I'm going to go patch this. I'd never actually patched the server before. I had a list of some instructions from QA, and I just kind of went at it. And it took... I was expecting, like, I'll go through this process, maybe it'll take 2 hours. The server was offline for over, 28 hours as I rushed and, tried to desperately get this up. And the worst part is that this weekend, Eve Down Under is using the Thunderdome server as well, and I had helped them get those accounts set up. So when it comes to Friday, I'm, mildly panicking that I've actually killed the server because I got the patch and everything in it. I started trying to bring it back online, and it was brain dead. It's just, the database was empty. It was not working. It turned out to be a relatively small issue, thankfully. One that my instructions didn't quite cover, but we figured it out. Had some help from one of our server admins, and we are back. So hopefully for next time I will be slightly more prepared for keeping the server online.
I mean, I remember from the old days, CCP Logibro having to, I think, literally go back into the office and physically reboot it one time for us when it used to reside under his desk. I think you've moved it now. Is it in London or is it somewhere else in Reykjavik?
I believe it's in London with the rest of our servers, so unfortunately I can't go physically kick it anymore.
Yeah, you just need to send CCP Hilmar down to do it for us, so if anything goes wrong, we'll call him up. The next teams are landing on grid, and don't worry, CCP Rob will tell them that you sent us. The next teams are landing on grid. This is going to be Warlords of the Deep versus the Tuskers. We have wildcards on both sides, one side bringing a cruiser and the other side bringing dual frigates again. I think it's the first wildcard cruiser we've seen, which is interesting. And I'm looking forward to this match because more shield. Everyone's bringing a shield, which is really interesting. I just wonder if everyone's trying to meme and force everyone to think that shield is the best, and in fact armor is secretly still better. I don't actually know. I'm not intelligent enough for these things. Misty will know. Misty, is that the case?
I plead the fifth on this one.
So it is the case.
Okay. It's the open tournament, right? And there's a challenge that I don't know if we've discussed yet, but you win matches, you get plaques. So I think it might just be that people are bringing very high damage setups, where a lot of the match rides on your ability to effectively screen and apply damage so that they can test how well they are or how good they are at these kind of technical things, as opposed to testing setups themselves.
Good.
Yeah. Cool. So Rath's going to press the button pretty soon. Brett and Misty will take you through these teams. Brett, you take us through the Tuskers because they've got the Atana. I know you love the Atana, so you can spend a little time gushing about how great that ship is. And I'll hand it over to you guys now to do just that.
Thank you, and everybody, and welcome to the match. We see Tuskers have bought a triple Sleipnir comp that have come in at 30. They have Etana and Broadsword. The Broadswords are coming at 30 and the Etana is coming at long range. We have triple Swiffles also at 30 and double Harpies, which have come in at 0 as that light tackle.
And on the Warlords team, red, you have triple Sleipnir again, same as blue team. You have the Scimitar in place of the Etana. You have the Vagabond in place of the Broadsword. You have 3 Jackdaws in place of the 3 Sveeples. And you have 2 Cambions in place of the Harpy. So effectively a mirror matchup with wildcards thrown in different places and the switch of, the Broadsword for the Vagabond. So it'll be interesting to see how these two teams play. With the blue team, I would say that with the Sveeples, they are very much going to be trying to ram in and get as much damage on as possible, and also securing tackles. Whereas with the Jackdaws, I think that the red team's going to be playing it a little bit more kitey, burning away perhaps, trying to apply damage to that lower end of the core, while also, maybe trying to get on top of the Etana with their battle cruisers. But the match is underway, so we'll see how things go. And both teams burning their light tackle away from each other. The Sleipnirs and Broadswords of the blue team are burning in, trying to chase down the Sleipnirs of the red team. We see a Sleipnir leading, not a Sleipnir, sorry, a Sveeple. Oh, he's turned around. Cool. Yeah, so both just being very cautious with how they want to play this match at the very beginning, because the first ship to get tackled is the first ship to get shot, essentially.
Yeah, and it's often the ship that gets tackled away from everything else is the ship that dies. Tackling everything in a blob together is an easy fire way for a brawl, but both these ships are just moving forward. Tusker's trying to get forward enough so that they can tackle down that Sleipnir, but what you're seeing is, I believe it might be the Jackdaws, and yes, it's the Jackdaws. The Jackdaws have got target disruptors on them, and they are blanketing the target disruptors across the blue team's Sleipnirs, which will hopefully mitigate enough of the damage the red team's Sleipnirs can apply more and defeat them.
So what I also want to point out is that I can see some ECM icons on the red team at the moment. So this seems to be a mass of ECM drones that have been put out by the blue team onto things like the Sleipnir and the Cambions to try and both break tackles and also break locks when it comes to the damage that they're putting out. So that's an interesting way that they're approaching this setup. And we can see that the Etana's burning in, the Scimitars both burning in as well, to try and make sure that the reps that they're putting out on their teammates are the best reps that they can be, so they're not sitting in full off at this time. But it seems like 2 Sleipnirs may go down. 1 Sleipnir goes down on the red team before the blue team. He's still alive. He's dead, right? So it's a very, very close matchup at the moment. I think blue team still loses the Sleipnir, and we're going to have to see whether red team can continue to trade at this rate or whether blue team manages to pull ahead, given the fact that they have more damage to apply to these core targets with their Sveeples. And saying that, one just died.
An important thing to notice is that as the blue team ships start to die, the TDs are going to be focused on the others, whereas these ECM drones are slowly getting killed by the Jackdaw. So hopefully the red team can kill enough of these drones and apply enough ECM that the Sleipnirs don't do enough damage. But by the looks of it, red team has chosen to shoot Svipples, whereas blue team has chosen to try and chunk down these Sleps and break the BCs of the other team.
I'm not sure whether switching the Sleipnir damage to the Sveeples is necessarily the best choice in this setup. I think that the Cambions and the Jackdaws should have enough damage to effectively pressure the Sveeples or the Harpies without having to switch the Sleipnirs to also shoot those targets. And what we see is that we now trade a Sleipnir on the red team for 2 or 3 Sveeples on the blue team, which is still probably about an equal amount of damage, especially if we think about a hail. So it is a decent trade in terms of how much damage is being put out by each team. But I would say that having 1 Sleipnir, 1 Scimitar, 1 Vaga probably loses to 2 Sleipnirs, an Etana, and a Broadsword, all things considered at this moment in time. But the Etana is tackled now by, I believe, 2 of the Cambions.
Yes, the Cambions and the Sleipnir are on top of this Etana. Unfortunately, the tackle of the blue team did not shield enough, and the Slep, as they focused the other Slep, the second one was able to burn away and just sit right on top of it. This is a very interesting match now, because blue team have to eliminate as much damage as fast as possible before they lose the rest of their ships.
So we just saw the Vagabond of Horus go down pretty quickly. I mean, I think that was before all of his ASB charges went off. So just bursting through the reps coming out from the Scimitar here. But without logistics now on the blue team, I think red team's in a fairly decent position, given the fact that the Cambions put out like 400, 500 damage each anyway. So you've still got effectively 2 or 3 Sleipnirs worth of damage on grid when you take into account the fact that they've still got the Sleipnir alive, plus Jackdaws and the Cambions. So we'll we'll probably see the Sleipnir of Mira go down before Dexter here, given the fact that we do have Lucas on the red team repping Dexter in the Sleipnir. But after that, I think it's pretty safe to say that red team probably wins this in the long run.
Yeah, especially since as that third Sleipnir on the blue team goes down, the second one is still alive. All of these Sleipnirs are fit with Ancils, so if you see them boosting regardless of the Etana dying, it can only do that 9 times, which is roughly heated on a Sleipnir about 40 seconds worth of boosts. So these things can stay alive and go through reps for 40 seconds until they run out and until they take all of that damage, which is what you saw happen there. It stayed alive long enough to finish all its cycles and then died when it ran out.
Yeah. So earlier I said that I don't think shooting the sweepers with the Sleipnirs is necessarily the right choice. I think given the way that the match played out, I didn't notice that Dexter had managed to slip tackle, which is one of the reasons that they maybe shot the sweepers in the first place, to clear up some of the tackle on their Sleipnirs. And what they did with that is they managed to pull range with Dexter, which not only prolongs how long he lives because he's not stuck in the melee with the 2 or 3 Sleipnirs and the broadswords and the Etanas of the blue team, but he's also able to get onto the Etana and take out the reps for that blue team, which effectively means that he's able to kill the other 2 Sleipnirs and the rest of their comp alongside his support wing and the scimitar of Lucas. One thing I will mention is Lucas seems to have gotten himself tackled by the broadsword, which was not moving, so perhaps just a decision to approach, or perhaps just a, cock up on that front.
Maybe overconfidence. It maybe as the final Sleipnir has gone down, the scimitars thought, hey, we have this in the bag, I can just not concentrate anymore, which is often what a lot of pilots do. Once all that adrenaline leaves, because you know your match is in the bag, your piloting gets a little bit worse.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, at this point, it doesn't matter if you live or die, right? Beyond giving away ship fits, which some people will still be quite cautious about, I think. So we see the broadsword go down pretty easily with the 2 Cambions, Jetdoors, and Sleipnir. So again, another win for Warlords, but a closer match, I think, than perhaps we've seen otherwise for these 2 teams so far. And with that, I think I'll throw it back over to Ithaca.
Yeah, thank you very much. So Warlords, they're taking that pretty handy victory over the Tuskers. The Etana Triple Sleipnir was not enough to get by the Triple Sleipnir Scimitar and dual Cambions there of Warlords of the Deep. First match that we've seen with Wildcard versus Wildcard. If this had been a match on Tranquility, on Alliance Tournament, I mean, this would be a very expensive day so far. We've seen maybe $1 trillion worth of Alliance Tournament prize ships already go up in smoke today. But thankfully for the wallets of our participants, this is happening on Thunderdome. So these ships cost absolutely nothing except the time it takes you to type spawn item and of course find the item code. Misty, could the Tuskers have done anything different there? Or was it kind of set from the start, that one?
I think given their comp, it probably plays out about the same way. I think it's very hard for the blue team to effectively screen the Cambions, and with their ship choices, the Sweepers and the Harpies probably also being dedicated to shooting some of the Sleipnirs on the red team to more effectively get through their damage core. It allows the Jackdaws and the Cambions to live pretty freely. So I think what they maybe could have done is split some of the damage by shooting a Jackdaw or something along those lines, which would have pressured the Scimitar a little bit more, right? So I think they probably just put all their eggs in one basket, which is, it can work, especially considering this is a rush setup. It's kind of what it does, but there are some nuances, I guess, to the setup they didn't really play into.
An important thing to realize is the Etana compared to the Scimitar has a much higher rep amount. So the thing they could have done is realize that it's 3 sleps versus 3 sleps. So you could have realized that with your bonus rep amount due to the Etana, you didn't have to have the Svipples on 0 for that maximum amount of damage. You could have pulled them back a little bit and used them as screening and kept their Etana alive. But the moment they went all in and allowed the Cambions to be free and get on top of the Etana, is the moment they lost the match.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. The rep power from the Etana outweighs that of the Scimitar, but I think the Scimitar had an easier time in terms of being mobile and being able to freely burn around, which the Etana just didn't have. One, because it is slower. I don't think it's as fast as a Scimitar, which means that it is more susceptible to getting tackled. And two, it's an AT ship, and also it reps a lot, so it's a prime target anyway.
Well, is it a prime target on Thunderdome? I mean, sure.
More
If
for
you're
the
playing
wrap
on,
around.
I mean, rep around, sure, but I mean, if you're playing on Tranquility, then 100%. Some teams will almost throw away the match just to headshot a Alliance Tournament prize ship that's brought. You know, if the team doesn't think that they've much chance of winning anyway, then they might just say, hey, let's just go all in on this tournament prize ship and at least get, 300-400 billion on our kill boards. But is that dynamic going to kind of exist in Thunderdome?
Not the price so much, but when you see an AT ship, it's usually there to, again, augment the comp, right? So you're not, in this case, going to be bringing AT ships to every match because it's not allowed by the rules. So when you do bring it, it's because you think it adds something of great value to the comp that you're bringing against the team that you're going up against, right? So I think from that point of view, seeing the AT ship, especially a cruiser hull, not so much the frigates as we saw, whiptails can be ignored, Cambions didn't get shot, imps got shot a little bit, but again, were basically ignored until the end of the match. With the cruisers, because of the way that they integrate themselves into the setups and what they bring to the table, you kind of need to kill them at some point. It's not something that you can just ignore until the end, especially in Etana with the rep amount taken into account. So it does kind of offer itself up as the prime target for the red team to effectively allow them to win the match. It's a win condition.
I'm just going to butt in there to that expert analysis that I'm really enjoying listening to, actually. This week is sponsored by Cable Utah, by the way. So the teams for the Opens, for these teams to show up today and give us a good show, and we get to watch them fight. Each time they win, they get 100 plex. So far, Warlords are doing all right. Sorry, I doubled it this week, didn't I? I doubled it to 200 plex this week. And so far we've been sponsored by a variety of people, and this week is a notorious PvPer, Cable Utah, who spends a lot of time in the arena himself.
Himself.
Shout out. Yeah. I didn't realise what I said there without. Yeah. Anyway, shout out to him and shout out to the people who've donated money. The prize pool for the main tournament is over 700 billion ISK now, roughly. I can't remember the last number I checked, but CSP have contributed as well, so we're creeping up towards a trillion ISK. If anyone's rich and is watching this and wants to help us hit 1 trillion ISK prize, so it's something newsworthy, we can hopefully get some websites to write about. That'd be pretty cool. This is all donated by players, and CSP have chipped in as well, so yeah, it's pretty cool. I just want to say thanks to donating.
One thing to add to that is, I think don't be too hard on yourself just to say that this isn't noteworthy already or newsworthy, right? I mean, 700 billion.
Yeah, sure. I'm just in my head. I want to hit. I know. In my head, though, I want to hit that 1 trillion just because it sounds really good.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. If you're a super rich Eve person, I mean, what can 300 billion get you? VV? It can get you, a Titan, cool. Everyone's got Titans these days. Maybe you can get your faction Titan. Wow, now you're one of 100 people with one of those. Or you could get your name written in, I don't know, space somewhere that says, hey, I sponsored this tournament and look how many people are having fun. Literally hundreds of people. We made 600 accounts in Thunderdome, so you're literally buying 600 people worth of, thanks mate, and a thumbs up. And that's pretty cool. So if you've got lots of money, I mean, give it to us, basically, is what we're saying. Give us your money. I see teams being moved into local. Quick segue. Once you've sent us your money, we will do the next match. Teams are being moved into the local. This next one is going to be Warlords of the Deep versus Slice. So Warlords tonight are 2 wins, 0 losses. Slice yet to pick up their first win. So this could be a tough match for Slice. Warlords, very storied team. Slice, of course, got a lot of history as well. But can't exactly complain. They've got some experience. I don't think they've got to the top 8 before, but they definitely had some interesting matches in the last tournaments. So, predictions, Misty. Do you think we're going to see Warlords bring another wildcard comp here, or do you think that they're going to just bring something regular this time?
I mean, think or no. Because, I mean...
Well, if you know, just tell us.
Pretty sure it's just the same setup, right? I mean, I'm sorry if you wanted variety, but I'm pretty sure it's just a case of ramming the setup into everyone to see how it does, right? Like, it's again, it's a technical matchup. It's not about necessarily varying the comps that you bring. It's about practicing, screening, applying damage, tackling, communication, which is what Opens is very much good
I
for.
can't believe people are treating
this
Opens
tournament.
like practice.
I know, unbelievable.
I know. Can't
How
believe
dare
it.
they?
Yeah, I expect the show. I expect
You
dog
might have to
games
wait for the actual matches for upsets and shows, you know?
I'm just waiting
I'm
for
enjoying-
the actual matches.
Sorry,
Sorry.
I was like, I'm just enjoying seeing Cambions flying around. I love those ships; they're so cool. So like, just seeing them use those, even if it's not going to be an end game meta, then I'm still excited to see these ships back on the grid.
I believe, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we are about to see a ship flown that has never been flown in an AT before.
What?
What ship is that? Are you talking about what
The
is
cargo container on grid.
The dual Redeemer.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
there's
wow.
probably been an instance of someone's brought Redeemers
Because
before.
I believe for Black Ops, I believe Widow have been brought, but I'm not entirely sure about Redeemers.
Yeah, I've
There
seen
must have
Widows,
been
I've
in-
seen Sins.
I think we've seen Sins for sure, Widows for sure.
We have
Panthers
seen
probably.
Redeemers. Sorry, we have seen Redeemers previously in some of the testing matches earlier on.
Yeah, but what about the
yeah,
actual
we had a
Alliance
plot-
tournament, Wrath? Have we seen any in that?
Sorry,
Anybody
say
know?
again, Ithaka.
Just wondering if anyone's ever brought a Redeemer in actual Alliance tournament before.
Not in the AT itself.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Let's show everyone what we're seeing here, and I'll hand over to Brett and Misty to take you through this match. So, red team is Slice versus Warlords of the Deep in blue.
Hello, and welcome back to the arena once more. So, I think I'll kick off with the red team, if that's right, and then you can introduce Blue, Brett.
Yeah, certainly.
So, on the red team, we have 2 Redeemers and a Typhoon as their battleships. You've got the Astarte Pontifex as their link ships. You've got the Hecate, 2 Blackbirds, and 2 Thalias to round off the comp. And Blue?
In blue, they have brought triple Sleipnir, as we've seen before, Scimitar at range, Vagabond for tackle, triple Jackdaws, double Cambion. Whereas the Jackdaws are going to be, as we saw last time, target disruptors, and long range DPS.
Yeah, so, I mean, both teams warping in at range here with the Redeemers at the very front, Sleipnirs at the very front for the respective teams to kind of lead the way. I'll be interested to see how this match plays out. You're taking Redeemers into Sleipnirs and a Scimitar, which is not a great choice as it stands because of the damage type that lasers do. But they do have a Typhoon, which, you know, can select the damage that it puts out in terms of, you know, Nova, so explosive damage or, you know, EM damage, for example. But blue team just ramming in. Red team, I think, trying to burn away a little bit with their battleships. Not going to work so well, given the fact that they are battleships going up against, you know, speedy Mimitar Rush.
Yeah, and we're seeing the heavy drones of these Redeemers drop out as everything burns in close. As these Redeemers now drop into armor, they have, of course, armor tank ships with the dual Thalias starting to wreck them, but that Blackbird is already deep into armor. This looks like they're trying to ECM everything and use the ECM to keep alive, but this Blackbird is already going down, and the Redeemer is already going down as well.
Yeah, so what I should have mentioned is that when Blackbirds or Rooks or whatever ECM boats are on grid with Mimitar Rush, because of the way that ECM can disrupt your ability to put damage onto a target, they do typically get shot first, as we saw with Storm going down at the very beginning, followed closely by Vlad in the Redeemer. I'd expect that Xalax in the Blackbird goes down next, while Telisari also gets shot by those Sleipnirs. So I think it's very much about the support wing of the blue team doing damage to those Blackbirds to a degree that the Thalias cannot keep up and rep all of the targets being shot.
Yeah, by the looks of it, the Blackbirds, the intent of it was for them to burn us far enough away so that when something is jammed, which of course due to the new jam changes means the only thing you can shoot is that Blackbird, due to these Sleipnirs being autocannon, they cannot apply to the Blackbirds that far away. But unfortunately, everything everything is just dying too quickly for the jams to be effective. Everything is dropping. This Astarte is finally dropping into hull. This triple Sleipnir comp is just vomiting DPS out in a rate that's just not comparable.
Yeah. So I see some ECM drones coming out from the blue team going straight onto the Thalias at the very beginning of the match, where they've stayed for this full duration. There's not really anything on the red team that can clear the ECM drones from the Thalias unless they have smart bombs on the battleships, which is an issue because now the Thalias potentially get jammed for 5 seconds every now and then by the ECM drones. Each ECM drone gets its own separate role, so it could stack up, not necessarily adding on, but happening one after the other. If they're extremely unlucky. So it is a way to disrupt the red team's abilities to get those reps out. But as you see, what is essentially looking like another clean sweep for the blue team, minus Casper accidentally boundarying perhaps, since he does have issues staying within the boundary at the best of times. But yeah, Typhoon taking damage. Pontifex probably going to be last, given the fact that it does the least now, given the way that the match has panned out. I see that Pontifex is burning off towards the boundary at the moment, so we'll see whether he makes it. But it looks like Casper may try to tackle him in the Cambion, which he does. So he's not going to make the boundary, unfortunately, but Casper might. We'll see whether he gets baited out, actually, because the Pontifex is AB fit. So
If anyone's going to be baited out, it will be Casper.
he's burned away. He's burned away. Okay.
Pontifex is at 121, 122. It's reaching for the boundary.
Oh, here comes Faith. And Faith has control spaced. Okay. Oh, no, he's flying down. And
Pontifex is out.
okay. Yeah. So very, very close to baiting a Cambion out, but unfortunately, not today. But yeah, no, good fights on local again. Another clean sweep for the blue team. And with that, I'll throw it back to Ithaca.
Yeah, thanks. So, Misty, just a quick question. As someone who spent a lot of time in tournaments being jammed, was the change to ECM where you can lock the target that's jamming you in the last Alliance tournament, or was that after that?
It was. I didn't play any Alliance tournaments after my ECM adventures, to be fair. So I do not recall when the change was introduced.
As someone who used full ECM comps in the Alliance tournament, it was after.
Right. So this is the first major tournament of 10v10 when that is a possibility you can lock and shoot the person that's jamming you, which should impact things a little bit. Cool. Well, yeah, that was a big F there for the Redeemer comp of Slice, as they just got, no other term for it. They got deep decked there by Warlords of the Deep. And
I'm sure you could have thought of some other term, Ithaca.
Is there a more accurate term that describes what happened to them there?
There is not.
Yeah,
We know what you like, Ithaca, it's fine.
Yeah, accuracy. That's what I strive for. Accuracy and highbrow, deep analysis that is unparalleled. Anyway, swiftly moving on. We have one more match today. It's going to be No Vacancies versus the Tuskers. Let's talk about bans quickly. So the banning system for the Alliance Open is a bit different from the Alliance Tournament. The Alliance Tournament was A bans, B bans, B bans, then A bans. And you see what the bans are coming in, so you get to panic and second, third, and fourth guess yourself as, why the hell have they banned the Procurer? What sort of elite comp have they got? Maybe we better ban the Skiff. Whereas this time what we've done is blind bans. Bay, can you walk us through the blind ban system?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different this year, and partially just to shake things up, do something new, try something different, and partially just kind of change the back and forth system slightly. So both teams, before the start of the match, exact time, which I can't remember, I think it's like 20 minutes, have to submit 3 bans, and any bans submitted, neither team can use. And also for any duplicates that are submitted, so both teams ban Nashak, for example, then both teams get an extra ban. So potentially that leads up to 9 bans in total, which is quite a lot. And it also gives kind of like an opportunity for teams to spreadsheet this all in advance. If they ban X, then we'll ban Y, and so on and so forth. So I think what I hope is that it gives some teams kind of time to create some beautiful spreadsheets and plan out exactly what they're going to ban. So it actually reduces the actual stress of the actual banning time because they've already got a plan of what's coming up, and they can kind of carefully manage what comps they're going to bring. And so hopefully they only need X amount of comps rather than having to adjust their comps quickly on the fly.
Alternatively, everything just goes complete chaos as soon as the bans come in, and they're like, "Oh shit, we didn't think this would happen."
That could quite happen, yes, for sure.
So I mean, Misty, do you think ships like the Sleipnir, the Scimitar, the Oneirus, the Leshak, do you think they're going to be popular ban targets?
So some of them definitely. There's certain ships where you ban them or you take them, right? Like if the ship is open, you bring it because the other team is going to bring it, and it's probably one of the strongest ships in the game. So Leshak in this case. I think if Leshak is open, you take Leshak, because if you don't, you're going to have some dipshit in a Leshak shooting you from across the arena doing 1,000 damage. It's kind of oppressive. So I think Leshak definitely going to be a safe ban for all teams, as it should be, unless they want to bring it. Besides that, I think most other ships are ships that you can leave open depending on the type of comp you want to run. But the risk is obviously, if you want to leave a super strong ship open, then the other team can also bring that. So perhaps practicing some mirrors is something that teams will need to do. Or, again, it's about how teams want to execute their Alliance tournament and how they want to approach it. So I can't say for sure which ships should be banned, because it will differ from team to team. So, and also based on what each team brings in the early weekends, or the first weekend, you can ban for that as well, to try and ban them out of ships that they look strong in, to put them at a disadvantage.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how this pans out, especially in situations because of the blind bans. You don't know what the other team's going to ban until they do it, so you're going to be sitting there like, well, we don't like the Sleipnir, for example, and we don't like the Leshak, so you ban those, and then you ban something else, and then the bans come in from the other team, and you find that they've banned the exact same things, and you're like, well, shit, now what do we do? Now you're trying to think what their bans mean for what they could bring, and then you get to the meta game of trying to figure out what the hell you need to ban. I mean, Brett, do you have any thoughts on this?
I believe certain ships are going to be banned, but I also believe bringing 3 blind bans is going to be a lot interesting in terms of banning certain types of compound. So, say banning logistics, all shield logistics like Simi and logistics frigs will allow you to bring certain comps, but I'm not entirely sure of what a banning strategy is. After experiencing previous Alliance tournaments, I've took a big long look at it and went, yep, I'm not going to be captain. I'm not going to bother thinking about that.
I mean, the good thing is we're not using the tournament tool banning tool, because I've been a captain of a team when you have to do the bans, and it is very stressful and very intimidating. So you're sitting there, you're chatting away with your team, hey, everything is fine, and all of a sudden in the center of your screen this window just pops up with big, like inch tall countdown, like a 2-minute countdown, just starts going immediately in red, like flashing at you, and you have a drop down menu which has every single ship in the entire game, and you have to find the one that you wanted to ban, while also seeing that they've just banned, I don't know, the Sleipnir, and oh shit, we wanted to bring that, now we have to think, what do we ban now? Terrifying. So the line ban system, I think, is going to be a little bit less stressful, because you can just put it in and then panic afterwards, whereas previously you had to panic at the same time. Right, last match about to happen. No vacancies versus the Tuskers. I see them in local. Let me start up my tournament tool and see if they're on grid.
They are landing
They're landing on grid. Looks like we have wildcard on one side and wildcards on the other.
It may have fucked up a little bit, a tiny little bit, and closed the wrong window. So it's fine. I'll wing it. So it's okay. Yeah. So we're seeing wildcards come out from both teams at the moment. I'm not sure whether we're on. No, we're not on the map view or the tournament view at the moment. So I'll wait for that before I go through. Yeah,
so I'm going to ask one question. CCP Aurora, I see those 3 Skybreakers. Remember the issue we talked about earlier on? Is this going to be a problem?
Thankfully, it's the last match of the day.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Can we talk about that? Is this OPSEC, or can we talk about that?
I mean, it won't hurt. We discovered the other day that
Okay. We've got interesting stories to tell you, but we won't tell you today then. So there you go. A teaser sometime we'll tell you. Right, so Brett and Misty, take it away, introduce it.
Hello. So, me and Brett back at it again. I'm going to introduce Red and I'll throw it back over to Brett afterwards. Sorry, I'm a bit frazzled by the fact I just closed everything. So on the red team, I believe we have 2 Rattlesnakes, an Etana coming in. Then we have an Orthrus, a Cerberus, 2 Bifrosts, and 3 Skybreakers. And for the blue team?
Blue team have bought triple Abaddon, Ogre, Vigilant, Magus, Hecate, Malus, which is interesting because it is a lot of Amar ships and then a sprinkling of others brought in the middle.
Do you have any predictions for how this match plays out and who wins?
Well, seeing as quite a few of the ships are named memed, I believe the Abaddons may be something that people aren't taking seriously, that they brought for the entertaining nature of them in this match.
Match is just about to get started, but I was just scrolling up to see Mira, I believe, had mentioned offhand in a separate chat to bring fucking Abaddons or something in response to one of the teams, I believe the one that we're seeing on grid. So perhaps they took it to heart and decided to try them out. So we'll see how it plays out. So we can see the Vigilant is taking damage at the moment and is currently grappled by what I can only assume is the Rattlesnake in the very middle of the arena.
Interestingly enough, if you're watching all of the Abaddons, I don't think the Abaddons have props. I think they are sitting at 0 with max armor, max tracking, they've dropped bouncers, and they are chunking a Rattlesnake without moving.
So it looks like Mira's taken those complaints to heart, brought Abaddons to show what they can do. To show that even meme setups can win. And Mira is known, I think, for bringing some of the memeiest setups in the previous 5v5 tournament. So he definitely does try and think outside the box. In this case, it seems to be working. You've got the Augurer managing to keep the Vigilant up under the 2 Rattlesnakes, and the 2 Malices do seem to be burning around at the moment, trying to apply pressure to the other team. Just trying to see where the Malices are at the moment. Looks like they're in the thick of it. One is tackled down by the Skybreaker at the moment, so La Colo is not moving quickly at all. And the other one also seems to be pinned down by another Skybreaker. So he is on top of the Etana, though. So the Etana is being neutered, which means that it won't be able to effectively rep the target, which in this case is Pinky and the Rattlesnake. So we will see the Rattlesnake go down shortly, I think, from the way that the match is playing out. And it doesn't seem like the Etana is able to get away from the Hecates or the Malus. So I imagine the Etana will also be pressured eventually by the T3 cruisers on the blue team.
Yeah, as we see one of the Rattlesnakes go down and the Abaddons start to swap to the other one as we see the damage start to get applied, we're just seeing these Abaddons sitting at 0, not moving, firing multi-spec or gleam at these Rattlesnakes, doing a huge amount of damage that are just breaking through even Etana and Ansil. These things are doing a lot of damage and a lot of range.
If we take a look at the Etana, I don't know if you can do that on stream or not. The Etana is not repping at all at this point. He's got 2 Malices on top of him, which means that he's effectively sightseeing in this match. He's not doing anything at this point. And I think he's going to be increasingly pressured now that he's tackled. Once this Rattlesnake goes down, the Abaddon's probably going to take their sweet time shooting him. I don't know if they need to shoot the Etana first or whether they can just spend time shooting the Orthrus instead. Since they're Abaddon, so they should be able to project around the arena without much issue, and they won't be receiving reps.
Yeah, an important thing to note for anybody who's watching and isn't up on what a Malus is essentially an armor frigate that does 200% bonus newt amount and newt range. So these small newts are chunking that Etana's capacitor to nothing, and an Etana, especially with the amount of reps it has, struggles to keep cap stable anyway. So with these Malices on it, it just got absolutely neutered, and the rest of the team is just slowly getting shot.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to say what they perhaps should have done differently. I don't really recall the initial layout of the teams and their warpins. I know that their tackle came in close and that the Vigilant got locked down pretty quickly at the very beginning of the match by the Rattlesnakes. What I think Red Team should have done is probably dedicate some of their support wing and probably the Rattlesnakes as well to trying to kill the Augurer at the very beginning. since the Augurer is AB fit, it's not burning anywhere quickly. And it does mean that they're able to get through things like the Vigilant, the Hecates, and potentially the Malices as well if their core survives long enough. But I think they would eventually run into issues against the Abaddons where even if they do manage to kill the Augurer and a couple of the support ships on blue team, the blue team's still going to have all of their Abaddons, and red team may have lost their Rattlesnakes by then. So
an important thing I felt like should have happened is the Rattlesnakes should have pulled range. The Abaddons weren't moving, they couldn't move. So if the Rattlesnakes pulled range, they might have been able to survive with their answer if the Abaddons stopped shooting Gleam and had to shoot to something that is a lot more longer range.
yeah, I think that's easier said than done for one of the Rattlesnakes that would have been Vigilant tackled.
Yes.
So 90% webs on the Vigilant, even if you're not scrammed, means that you are only moving at 90% of your max speed with a micro drive on. So you'll be going incredibly slowly regardless of the scram or not.
While true, it is important to note that a lot of drones, of EC drones, were out from the red team. So if those EC drones could have been on the Vigilant and hopefully jammed it enough so that the Rattlesnake could escape.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you get a lucky roll, which is always the way with ECM, or if you're an extremely unlucky person, then yeah, ECM could have definitely swung the match a little bit, but I don't think it would have changed the end result with the way that these teams played their comps. So I think there needs to be some approach changes for the blue team and red team. I mean for the red team, sorry, and blue team just fucking memes. So whatever. But I believe that is Tuskers taking yet another win, this time with Abaddon. So perhaps one of the ships that teams will want to consider banning when it comes to the actual tournament, since they seem to have done really well in this case. And we'll hand it back over to Ithaca.
Thanks, Misty. Yeah, so Tuskers there, winning with Triple Abaddon, a ship that has a special place in my heart. It's one of the best looking ships in the game. I just wish it was better. So that is our last match of the day. We have the... Oh yeah, it's already up on screen. Bay's way ahead of me here. So Tuskers 2 wins. Slice with 0, No Vacancies with 1, and Warlords of the Deep with 3 wins today. So well done to everyone who took part. Well done everyone for getting on Thunderdome, getting your characters and everything. And thanks for bringing some really interesting comps with all of the wildcard stuff. Thanks to everyone for just being here and actually taking part in this thing. It makes it fun for everyone involved. Thank you for everyone for watching it. Thank you for Rathnon and Domitras for pushing all the buttons in the background and making the actual tournament tool work. BRJ, who's doing the camera work and organising everything. Our commentators, we had Mystical Might and Brett Thomas. And of course CCP Aurora, who has been a hero basically the entire time so far. Does everyone else want to do any shout outs or say anything before we sort of wrap things up?
Did you miss Misty, or was I imagining things?
I did miss it.
Yeah, I believe so.
I just wasn't paying attention then, clearly. Sorry about the scuffed production there. I was trying to do 3 things at once, but we got there in the end. And yeah, thanks for coming to the teams, especially for taking the time to do this out of Saturday night.
I'd
Shout
like
out to
to.
everyone in CCP who helped me with these 640 password resets.
Yeah, shout out.
It all had to be done manually. So props to especially CCP Ice Cream. He did more than half, I think, on his own.
Wow.
I'd like to give a quick shout out to my friend McKay. At the moment, he's been a very good boyfriend. Travelled halfway across the country to see his girlfriend, and then ended up in lockdown for 2 weeks. Bless him.
Yeah, well, once again, thank you everyone for watching. Literally, without people watching, this entire operation is completely pointless. So thank you. And yeah, I've been Ithaca Hawk. Good night.